Do not think that Middle East is glamorous all the time. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in order to make 6 month compressed programs work.
Hi, I'm Sam G. Welcome to Your Design Passport, the podcast for architects and designers building careers and lives across borders. Let's get started. If you've ever wondered what it actually takes to build a global career in architecture, not the glossy brochure version, but the real, on the ground, cross border reality, today's episode is going to be a masterclass. My guest, Carl Adams, began his architectural journey at the University of Pretoria in South Africa. But what's remarkable about Carl isn't just where he started, it's everywhere his career has taken him since. From South Africa to Bahrain, Dubai, Kuwait, Oman, Saudi Arabia, India, and even the Seychelles, Carl has built an extraordinary body of work across some of the most complex, fast-paced, culturally diverse markets in the world. What I admire most about Carl's story is that he carved out a global pathway we don't hear about often. Instead of the typical UK or Australia routes many South African trained architects follow, Carl pursued opportunities where ambition, speed, culture, and challenge collide, and he built a career leading major projects and teams across multiple countries. Today, we're going to dive deep into both sides of that journey: the story, how each move happened, what shaped the pivots, and how we built a global career intentionally and unintentionally, and the technical realities, navigating codes, adapting documentation, understanding procurement systems, managing cultural expectations, and working at incredible speeds in Middle Eastern markets. So whether you're an architect dreaming of working abroad, a student curious about global mobility, or a designer fascinated by how international practice really works, this episode is your passport into that world. Carl, welcome to Your Design Passport.
Hey Sam, how you doing? A long time no see.
Yeah, good, man. So nice to finally catch up with you.
Yeah, likewise.
Awesome. So, Carl, take us back to the beginning from studying at UP to working across the Middle East and Africa, and where the key steps or moments that shifted the direction of your career.
Thanks, Sam. Basically, I from day one I have been very focus driven, and literally when I finished my first degree, it even happened where I was just elected in the company to manage high end residential, which was state houses in Eswatini. I don't know if you're familiar, but Eswatini was formerly known as Swaziland, and I worked on state houses for the royal families there. So from the beginning, I had a lot of high expectations and a lot of responsibilities, and a lot of complexities that I engage with absolutely no experience. But from day one, I had such a good start to my architectural career. So when most people do not get that sense of responsibility early on, maybe later stages of their career, maybe after they've got a credentials like a REBA or SACAB, I already had that kind of responsibility from day one. From there, transitioned into, obviously we finished our master's degrees, and the World Cup was starting in South Africa, which was also a great timing in my career because as soon as I graduated at master's level, I already signed a contract to work on the Nike Football Academy with, as you know, the Nike shoe brand, and that got me introduced to global standards. So this is where I became familiar with a global brand, a global standard, and that's also what shaped my career as well. Understanding that there is a thing called brands, and a lot of, as you'll see in the Gulf, a lot of buildings are sold from just a brand perspective. So often Nike Football Academy, which was very fast paced, as you know, the World Cup had to be in 2010. It started up probably 6 months from Jan, somewhere around there, and the building had to be completed. So basically, Nike had basically set a forte that you have to have the building completed before the World Cup starts. So that was immense pressure for someone that has just graduated at master's level. I was the architect on site, which you'll see how that's influenced my career as an architect of record, because basically you deal a lot with not only the technicalities, but you deal a lot with the daily site instruction books, issuing detailed drawings for construction, but not only then the issuance of it, because you're based on site, you actually see how the contractors work, how they order their supplies, long lead items. And this also influenced my understanding of projects and why I became a project manager in the long run. So my path to a project manager actually started from day one as an architect on site, understanding the full spectrum of the project. Because as you know, we only studied mostly design, Sam, when we were in UP and bachelors, and the schools normally relied on our own holiday experience or our own experiences to gain or catch up on our CPD when we go to work and stuff. So we didn't actually learn about the hard, gritty, muddy contractor on site supervision where I became accustomed to. From then on, I focused more on malls after building the Nike Football Academy, which I was very inspired as an architect because the building is amazing. And I joined a company whereby I focused mainly on retail. Malls were booming in South Africa, in Nigeria, in Ghana. And I had the privilege to work with one of the top architects in South Africa at the time, who also had immense contracts on malls. And like I was just doing from Forest Hill to Masira Mall, it was just mall after mall after mall. And as you can understand, the complexities of the mall is not just a warehouse. You actually have brands within the warehouse. For example, after we established the kind of concept of the mall, we had to focus on the complexity. So when we start zooming into a single store, you realize it's more complex than you think. You might find there's another Nike store in there, or a Foschini, or whatever brand that's showcased in the mall, and you have to understand their brand standards. And this made me also understand the contractual nature of things. I got interested more in contractual performance specifications. Why do each brands differ, and so forth? And we basically reached the level where we mastered mall designs. From there, I wanted a new challenge. I wanted to focus on more complex high rise buildings because I did not focus on high rise for a while. So another firm offered me an opportunity in Cape Town to focus mostly on high rise buildings like the Dubai Water Canal, but I was based in Cape Town at the time. And it just out of circumstance and complexity where I just landed quite a good opportunity to go to Bahrain. And when I went to Bahrain, I got another enticing meetings and basically a showcase on project management. So I met a very well-rounded project manager who's the CEO of a top company at the moment. And when I met him, I started understanding the project management side of the way that we work. At the time, I was still an architect and I progressed to a design manager kind of roles, but I was very interested in the PM part. And he introduced me to the accounting side of things, where we start managing timesheets, we start managing the performance, CPIs, earned value, all that kind of things where we just focus on the project as a living thing, that it cannot just be ideas. It has to be more of how do you sustain a project and how do you keep it running and built. You want to reach site supervision stage, you want to build a project, and at the end of the day, you want to sign off a practical certificate for your client and make your client happy at the same time. And most importantly, make sure it's built within budget. So there's more than just understanding as an architect. When you start grasping the management side of things, it becomes a bit more interesting. When you start not only meeting clients from a design point of view, I mean, we architects, we always appreciate design intent, but there's more fascinating parts of projects going beyond just the ideas. And I think when we first heard of professional exams, we got kind of introduced to that with the contractual JBCC and that in South Africa. But when you take that further, when you start looking at now there's a PMP or a project management professional career path, when you start looking at the how everything interrelates from a management point of view, you understand that projects are more complex than you think. There's a lot of factors, stakeholder engagement, there's a lot of other elements that are more complicated than just doing working drawings, if you know what I mean. So from then on, from Bahrain, I decided I need to make the leap into the Gulf because I was really captivated by the way projects were run at high speed. with a lot of stakeholder engagement, a lot of meetings. I mean, when people say things in meetings and the ideas change, that's when my I don't know if you saw my motto, but if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. That is from a management point of view, basically minutes, records, because that is the Bible. 3 years down the line, when you look at a project, if you have an archive and a good, solid story of your project, you will know that all decisions were always made within the life cycle of the project, whether it was in the design stage or site supervision and then site instruction book. Everything was made during the program. So when I went to Dubai with that knowledge, I started basically climbing the ranks, and I got good opportunities with another big company in the Fortune 500. And literally, when I worked with them, projects were just being built almost every 6 months. So, and coming up to the Expo 2020, it was amazing. It was literally before COVID, things were running at such high speed that yeah, it was kind of unsustainable because it was literally that fast track. And after COVID, I went back to South Africa with the family, and then decided South Africa is just not the market for me. So I returned to the Gulf after COVID to Oman, which was one of my first countries that I actually experienced in the MENA region. And I just found my niche this side of the world. Oman is not like Dubai. It's literally, I mean, South Africans don't even need a visa to get in. You just fly in, you get a visa on arrival, which I didn't even know that. All my 5 years in Dubai. And yeah, the country's amazing. The people, the dynamic, the clients, the government entities, everything is just on another level. And they are also in this boom of transitioning to a Dubai or a catch up with Saudis. Basically, they are focusing on the tourist market as well because they offer a lot more than Dubai. Mm, And so, yes, and this is what brings me to the present day, where I'm a project manager in a leading engineering firm, Italian firm, with very big arms here in the Middle East. And we are expanding to other areas of the MENA region, Saudi, also picking up a lot on the big projects. And yeah, my journey has been quite complex, but it actually was not planned directly, but it was just embracing challenges and complexities and willing to work hard in those complexities because as you know it's a very competitive environment. I mean, if you are not working in my younger years, I used to leave the office at 2 a.m. Can you believe it? Like when we're at UP stages, so when they can see and a client can see when they call you in a holiday and they've got that kind of admiration or once you build that trust, it's in this region, trust is everything. Your client, whether it's a private company or a government entity, everything is built around trust. And if the client trusts you, you just get awarded more projects. And yeah, that's where we are in present day.
Well, that is quite the rundown. So, I have a few questions or comments on what you mentioned. So, if you take us all the way back, how did you get that first job? Because that sounds like a very impressive job to land as your first job.
You're talking about the World Cup uh, job,
Yeah.
right? Okay, because luckily for us, we graduated in 2009 and the 2010 World Cup was shaping up. So there was absolutely a lot of jobs, whether you applied as an intern, because we're a bit lucky to graduate at 2009, to be honest, because not a lot of people can get a job so fast. Because as you know, I think we were around November when we finished. I put my CV out to, because obviously everyone's excited about Cape Town. You know, you're young, you want to go to Cape Town, you want to live your life, and. So I applied to a lot of Cape Town firms. I just picked up one of the architectural digests. I looked for Cape Townian architects and I applied everywhere. I literally applied to every single Cape Town. If I go to my Gmail and I go back to 2009, you will see I sent my CV out to almost 150 different architectural firms. And a few of them responded, and then one of them caught my eye and says, basically, I want you immediately. I'm like, what? So we had an interview. He flew down from Cape Town and he just hired me on the spot. He says, as soon as you are ready, start immediately. I'm like, wait, that's we go for Christmas with my family. This is like, so luckily for us, like in 2009, I had already signed a contract to start. Thought it would be based in Cape Town. But when I actually started the actual job, I realized that it was almost like an architect of record job based in Johannesburg. So we were building the Night Football Academy in Soweto, which is a very beautiful project. We're working with REF projects in America. So from day one, I had exposure to an international architect. So, I mean, I have never worked with an international architect before that. Or prior to that, I was only like almost 2 years full time experience at the time. And when I realized, okay, these guys think differently. They don't think like how South African architects think. They think with different conventional designs and things like that. I'm like, okay, this is kind of different. I've never been, I always focus more on how to build cost effective. I mean, I was in Eswatini to Johannesburg is mostly cost effective designs that work. And here it was how that was the building town story. I don't know if you've seen the Night Football Academy, but it has like a folding that opens up to the exhibition space. Due to budget reasons, it actually is not a folding. It's almost like a folding door, but it looks like it's folding and it's stuck in that position. But originally, when the concept was driven, it was supposed to be basically a folding door, jackknife door. So yeah, so we were just lucky to have that World Cup happening. I mean, that wasn't the only stadium I designed. We designed warm-up stadiums in Richards Bay. Some of them weren't built, but I mean, the whole way of designing the flow, the workflows, how that gets from an international architect to a South African architect, a joint venture agreement. Because obviously you start learning about contracts as well. Because I'm on site 24/7. I'm seeing how things are being formulated, right? So literally when I see that, okay, you need a local architect as an architect of record, I was basically the AOR. So that's how I got this experience and how it transitioned to my works in the Gulf. Because in the Gulf, it's very similar to that kind of scenario. And I was lucky that the Nike also brought me that experience because in the Gulf, you work only with international firms. The EMAs of the world, the big firms only trust international architects. For example, I worked with Zahadid architects here in Oman. They only want the best top 5 architects to do the ideas, right? So once you appoint the top architects, the international architects, you have to formulate a team. We as the architect of record, if you look back at my career from the night was the AR, it's kind of a similar role here in the Gulf where I am the AR working with international architects. For example, in Amwaz, I'm working with Geoforma, who's also a high profile architect that's done that whole building in the Saudi. I'm sure you've seen it all over the adverts on Google and YouTube where that mirrored building of the landscape of Saudi. That is a geoformer building. And they've got high, very high standards, right? Same with Zaha Hadid. When they set their standards, it's very high standards. And we, as the architect of record, have to make sure that our own engineers and our own whoever contractors are appointed can build to that standard. And it's a lot of pressure, but our clients actually trust us. That is the most important aspect because when you're in this industry and you've got a record, a clean record of working on high profile projects, your clients tend to trust you more. And that's how you actually grow in this industry. Whether in South Africa, it may be a bit different, but here it's built on trust. And yeah, that's how I basically grew, and mainly as an AOR.
Okay. So you've practiced across multiple countries. How has the South African registration been viewed in other markets, and how did you navigate licensure or recognition along the way? Have you had to re-register at all, or are you still using your South African architectural license?
This side of the world, REBA is more recognized. So if you do a Royal Institute of British accreditation, you are more recognized as an architect because most of the buildings, whether they work in Kuwait or Dubai, they focus on the greater standard, which is normally the international standard. So you might have, there's a Gulf local standard. For example, you can just have a FAR of so much, But if you look at the international standard, that's why most of the project they say use the greatest standard. And most of the time, it's the international standards. And Reba is, if you look at Zaha Hadid and all those other architects, most architects that get the uh, the awards are Reba recognized. So Reba, for any architect, I would recommend doing their Reba from South Africa because that is the benchmark. But as I say, I'm more project manager focused. So my career was more of an AOR. So I would not necessarily need to focus more on my Reba. Architecture was good from a design manager point of view where I can understand design intent. So my background as an architect helps me immensely in my management side of things. So from day one, I focused more on management more than actual architecture. Because as if you go back right to the beginning, the Nike football building, it was like the Cape Town office was my international firm, giving me, feeding me information from my American, because they would coordinate with the American firm and they would release the drawings to the architect of record, AI me, and I would be the one that would manage the project. So my skills came out from the coordination of all my different teams, and I include my contractor because the contractor is the most important stage out of all stages. The contractor is the main person I focus on because at the end of the day, my client needs a building, and the building is built by guess who? The contractor. So I focus a lot of my time in the construction stage, like right now when we're building the Wadidoka building in the Salala. So I'm daily calling my contractor, calling my resident engineers, telling them, guys, what's the plan for this day? What's the plan for the week? It's a lot of hands-on approach. It's a lot of meetings. I follow an agile approach where I meet daily. I do not believe that we should just not meet daily. It's the only way you can get your team to focus. With AI, that also helps because now we enter in a new stage of constant record keeping. Like this, it's impossible not to have a complete record now. It's literally, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. Remember my saying, now with AI, it's absolutely incredible. It's actually gone to a point when it's incredible. So it can record almost too much, which is also not good because that's why I will always mention in the Gulf that this is being recorded. Most people do not like being recorded, by the way, in the Gulf because it's also some people just do not like from a religious point of view. So you always have to tell people, look, I'm here to make sure that the decisions are made correctly and there's a record. So most people do understand that record keeping is critical. So yeah, so literally I will make sure that most of the time that my teams are aware that decisions have to be made in meetings.
In terms of your registration and professional recognition, how did it transfer and what did you need to do?
If you focus mostly on architectural, it'll be the REBA accreditation that's more recognized. The South African is recognized, but it's there's no registration process. But most of the time, in my situation, I focus more on the AR role. So therefore, I work through the engineering company or through the architect of record who is registered, for example, in Dubai, and I am within the team as a manager. So I'm not using my South African accreditation as an architect. I'm using my manager experience role as a project manager or a design manager. So from there, you need to do your project management professional, like a PMP from PMI. That is the recognized international standard, or you can study it at a university. It's the same thing. I just find the PMP is more recognized worldwide because it's constantly almost like SACCUP where you get a CPD, you renew it, you basically keep on updating your career. And you'll see from PMI's website that they're constantly changing. Some would say if you're focusing as an architect, do your REBA. If you want to be international, it's the best standard. If you're focusing on a project management, do your PMP or your equivalent university degree in project management.
Okay, well, that's actually very interesting because I remember there was a stage in Australia when I was there, and they were asking for separate project management licenses and that sort of thing. And our governing board actually sent out a certificate that said that we were qualified to actually do any project management roles as that was part of our architectural registration and profession. So find that quite interesting. That'd be interesting to see if that would then carry over to where you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Here it's also like if you've worked as a design manager with a client, the client knows you. So they entrust you. That's why I say trust in this market is culture. So culture here, for example, if I'm meeting my client, they trust some architect who has, or a design manager that's got experience designing the Divine Water Canal or those kind of buildings, Norris Island, all those things. Once they see that on your portfolio, because remember everything you go through in a tender, they see your CV. I'll be positioned as the project manager on the project. They review it, they see what projects you've been working on, and they said, okay, this architect of record company can do the job based on the fact that the projects that the team, the humans within the team, competent enough to do the project. So therefore, most of it's based on a trust basis. But as I say, all engineers have to be fully registered. Our project managers have to have at least a PMP. Us architects have to have finished a master's degree, have at least 10 years experience. So that everything has weightings, your experience, your work projects you've worked on, which is also very critical. That's why if anyone is looking to work abroad, I'd say start early so you can build up that repertoire of projects because you just do not want to work on malls or just low rise. You want to work on huge scale international projects like in Dubai with international architects. So that beefs up your portfolio.
Okay. And then when it comes to code and compliance differences, what are the biggest technical and regulatory jumps when you move between countries? Any market where the code landscape hits a bit harder than expected?
Yes, definitely the Gulf is way more fast paced. As I said before, and when I was working with one of the Forbes 500 companies, we are building projects almost every 6 months. So you can imagine the amount of authority approvals that are required in that. So there's the stakeholder engagement is absolutely intense. You're meeting with different ministers, ministries, you're trying to get whether it's AIP, agreements and principles, or NOCs, it's constant meetings every day. So if you can imagine how you compress approvals within 6 months, it's chaotic. So you have to have stakeholder workshops, you have to have stakeholder meetings. They need to understand the project. You cannot just go to a minister's house and say, can you review this drawing? No, you actually have to involve all the stakeholders, as I say, in a workshop, explain the project. Once they understand the project, they all go back to their teams and it'll be easier to digest once your drawings eventually do come in at play. From my end, I've noticed that what's useful is to actually appoint, because I focus more on contractual matters. So I appoint local stakeholder engagers, and which is very important in this type of market. Because stakeholder engagement, you have to be able to speak Arabic, you have to be we're very well connected, and so forth. So we do meet daily with our stakeholder engagers to make sure that the authorities' approvals, every authority, whether it's your EIA or whatever, has specific rules and regulations. I mean, it's so complicated. Whether it's on a UNESCO heritage site, which I'm working on, it gets more complicated, or a standard residential or a high rise. There's different entities that have their regulations, and you have to comply with every single tick box on the sheet, you know? So I would say the Gulf is much more hectic than South Africa, for example. It's South Africa is very simple compared to the Gulf because the level of stakeholder engagers is not that much and not as fast. When we in South Africa, we submit in Cape Town on a portal. It just goes through a few entities, and we get an approval for a building permit. And this kind of industry in our side of the world, we have a lot more engagements, and a lot more entities to engage, and it helps to have your stakeholder management team as a from a project management perspective.
And then if you go like more granular in the actual building compliance and like building standards, have you noticed that there's different rules in place for like just an example like staircases or handrails or toilets or something to that effect?
Africa's in the sense that we do mostly follow RIBA standards. So, so as I said, in South Africa, we do follow international best practice, luckily for us, because our universities do engage in international REBA standards. So, for example, your staircase heights, 150 rises and whatever it is, or 140 millimeter, that standard, when you take it to if you come to this part of the world, is flawlessly the same. It's almost the exact same copy of the standard. So our standards are pretty much good, so it's good to follow. But as I say, if you want to be more recognized as a designer, do your REBA. You have to do your REBA. All our architects this side of the world have their REBA accreditation, and they have obviously a more adept understanding of that standard. As I said, when we do a building, most of our clients choose the wording on the contract will be the greatest standard. And normally the greatest standard would not be the gold standard, it would be the international best practice. So yeah, so I'd say from regulations point of view, we kind of similar. But when it comes to sustainability, is obviously you need to do your lead AP as well. So you need to understand your lead sustainability kind of way of building, not only from a site supervision point of view, because lead also has construction standards. It also has design standards. And the most complicated part of the whole process for me was because I came from Africa, I did not build a lot of high rise. So what I learned the most as an architect was my facade engineers. And now it's easy because I actually appoint facade engineers. So my facade engineers actually are the skin of the building. As you know, in the Gulf, it's freaking hot. So most of our clients like glass buildings, and as you know, you can't just build a glass house in the desert. So you need a lot of engagement with your lead consultants, your MEP teams, your facade engineers, and most of the time it's a parametric building, so it does not look normal. It's got curves everywhere. There's not one straight line on our buildings. So yeah, I would say it's very the standards are higher, our expectations are higher, the quality is definitely higher. So the snag lists are generally way higher than you'd have in a South African environment.
Okay, so you just said snag list over there. I'm guessing, is that the same terminology where you are now?
We don't use snags here in the US. We refer to our snags as site observations. Even referring to them as an inspection is generally not considered good practice.
Terminology as South Africans, we normally call it snag list, and people this side will know what we're talking about. But you're right, it is an inspection report. I still call it snags.
And then, do you know if with the REBA registration, I know that when I was still in South Africa, my previous boss, it was like an automatic thing where he could just register in REBA. Do you know if that's a separate process now that you need to undertake?
You have to do it directly with Reba itself. Employers generally only appoint architects who have the credentials of Reba. Otherwise, they do not actually put you in a senior role. You may be an architect by training or a similar role, but most of the South African architects actually get away with it. I know when I was at some of the other firms, they did hire South African architects. I actually put CVs through as South African architects that got the job, and they did not have a Reba. And they got good positions as well, based on the fact on their portfolio. Luckily for us as South Africans, most of us are very hardworking, and it shows in the portfolios. You can see what people have been working on, how they, when interview, how they anticipate building a building, their process, their mindset, and how they design. You can see a good architect just on their portfolio alone, you know?
And I found it very interesting. You were talking about the greater standards. So here in the US, they use the International Building Code, which to me is bizarre because it's the first time that I've ever encountered it. And I did not use it in South Africa and I didn't use it in Australia. And now I hear about the International Greater Standard. It's just, yeah, it's just something interesting. What strategies do you use to ensure your architectural ideas stand out and get accepted in such a competitive and complex environment?
You need to impress at a ministerial level. So our clients would go to the ministers and present their project. And if they accept it, it gets the green light and I can sign my LOAs with my subs. So it's a very tricky environment because everything is complex. It's not a straightforward project where you can just build a building or a client. Like in South Africa, you get a normal project to build a mall. Here, it's a lot more involved on a feasibility level as well. So when you're with our clients, they also come and to us to ask, what can we build? So actually your clients also trust your, I would call it the briefing stage. So your initial briefing stage is actually very critical, and your ideas from that. They also want to understand how you're going to make that brief into reality, which architect you're going to use, because in this part of the world, your ideas are like gold, right? So if you're building the next Lamborghini or Bugatti or whatever, building your idea is absolutely the most important selling point. Because if you're selling off plan, most of the people that buy off plan want a very good idea. And that's why we appoint a lot of international architects as well, to make sure our ideas are well grounded with the feasibility studies.
And then in terms of the client and the cultural expectations, you mentioned besides like the trust aspect, how have you had to adapt your communication style?
You have to be a good talker. I mean, literally, based on your experience, most people trust a lot of experience. Like, I mean, me and you, Sam, have almost 20 years now experience, right? So most people come to us for guidance. So how would you do this? As you know, in every project there are problems, whether it's a resourcing issue or when we running our programs in parallel with multiple other projects. You can imagine the amount of complexities. Do you hire more people? Do you outsource? From a management point of view, it gets very complex, and your client also comes to you under the pretense that you have enough resources to build a building, and you have to prove that to your clients. And once your clients trust you from a basis of coming to your office, it's a lot of people skills, I'd say, trust. It's a lot of face-to-face meetings. Your client only trusts you as a human, right? We are not bots. So literally you have to have that people connecting skills. You have to be able to talk to your client openly, bluntly. Whether there's a problem, you have to be honest. Your client trusts honesty. Mm, And yeah, so you develop trust from a face-to-face point of view with clients, this part of the world.
And have you only been doing all of your communication in English, or have you had to learn another language for these communications?
All letters have to be translated in Arabic. So most of our letters are like half half. International English is the recognized standard. So most of our meetings are in English. But when it comes to stakeholder engagement, some meetings are purely in Arabic. So for me, and how we manage that is that we have obviously our local stakeholder engager that comes with us to the meetings. And they obviously speak in Arabic. So Arabic is still a communication tool that everyone uses. English is contractually the language that we use to make decisions in. Because if we make decisions in Arabic and you translate it in English, it can mean two different things. So the only way contractually that things can be made incisively is to have it in English, so but everyone knows in English what the decision is. Because I can tell you now, if you wrote the same book in English and in Arabic, it might mean two different things just from the basis of the way it's translated.
Okay, and then you mentioned that the East is known for its rapid delivery cycles. What reality should architects prepare for when entering these environments?
I would say be prepared for long nights as an architect because, as I said, most of our projects are very competitive. A lot of projects run in parallel. And if you're working for a smaller company, for example, you might not have enough resources to reach a master, for example. So be hardworking. It's not glamorous, believe me. If you initially setting up, I mean, I told you when I was still young in my 20s, I used to leave office at 2 a.m. Because most of my resources were working till 2 a.m. And I'm the project manager and lead by example. I need to submit this. And I don't want to go and sleep and just submit in the morning. I need to show my team that I'm here to support them and so forth. So just be very hardworking in the beginning when you're still working your way up. But if you manage to get in yourself into a big firm with immense resources, it might not be that kind of problem anymore. Do not think that Middle East is glamorous all the time. There is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in order to make 6 month compressed programs work.
Sure. Okay, that's pretty hectic. Pretty hectic. I do like my sleep.
That's why I think it's it's rewarding. Even though it is a lot of work, it is very rewarding. The salaries are good. I mean, people are working that hard because they know that they're there to earn a good living. They're there to support their families. So people are responsible. Most of the international people that are here, that are in these positions, are very responsible and they actually take pride in their work. And this is why they give it their all. And the glamour comes after that, obviously. When you do finish the project, is bonuses, there is that kind of thing. So I would say, do not think the glamour part comes automatically. It's actually earned. It's like it's the same way you develop trust with a client here. It's the same thing you do with your line manager. Because in this part of the world, you have line managers, you have that kind of management structure, which people are not used to in South Africa. You might just have a project architect you report to, but here there's actually levels of management, almost like the Ford company. You've got a whole bunch of layers. So I'd say just work hard, impress your line managers, and the rest comes.
Okay. And then outside of the office, buying a car, finding housing, setting up your life, what were the biggest shocks or differences when living abroad? And what should architects prepare themselves for beyond the job?
Okay, it's changed a bit. Luckily, it's changed. But when I first got my first apartment, I had to give 12 checks. So literally, that was kind of new to me because I did not initially pay out for an entire year without, I literally handed over my salary to my
So,
land. That has changed. Now it's month. Now you
mhm.
can get month to month contract. But I'm saying back in the day, I mean, we got 20 years experience. We're talking like way back in the day. So back way in the day, it was kind of a culture shock to make your landlord is entitled to by law to cash your check, right? And you can, if you do not have enough money in your account, you can go directly to prison if one of the
Phew.
checks bounces. So for me, that was a learning curve where there's a culture shock. That was the only thing that is quite hectic, which has changed now. I believe now you can start in month to month. So it's not as bad as it used to be. But other than that, everything else is flexible. Like the South African driver's license, you just swap it out for your UAE license. So my first day when I exchanged my license, it was the first time I drove a left-hand drive vehicle. So I literally swapped my license and they printed on the spot. They've got the machine in South Africa. We have one machine to print for the entire country. In Dubai, that same one machine, multi-million dollar machine that's in South Africa, is sitting behind this guy, right? And he just goes and prints it, picks it up, and says, "Here's your card." I'm like, I basically told him in the spot, I said, "Did you know in South Africa that machine is like printing for the entire country? That one machine that is sitting there like a printer on your desk." And he's like, "Wow, we've got many of these." But so getting a driver's license there was not even a test. As long as you have perfect vision, I've got very good vision, and you just need a valid license. And then from there, once you have your driver's license, it's that simple. As I said, only complexity is your checks back in the day, which has changed now, and the rest is smooth sailing. I mean, it's a very cosmopolitan city. I mean, everything is easy. I mean, literally everything is like, for example, you can shop from your phone. So everything is too easy in the city in terms of living. But it can get pricey if you are an outgoing person that eats a lot in fancy restaurants. It can get very pricey. But if you just manage your lifestyle, it's pretty nice actually. And there's a lot of facilities, there's a lot of gym, met a lot of people that are like-minded like me. So literally, it's that kind of culture here. It's almost like Lisbon, where it's like everyone is just fit fanatic. So it's about finding your goal. So if you're in a fitness, you'll fit in. If you're into jet skiing or whatever, it's a culture. It's almost the same. It's a nice transition.
Okay. And then it's time for our signature moments, the passport stamp question. So think of your career as a passport. What's the stamp that changed you, shaped you, or surprised you the most?
I remember when I was in high school, and my teacher mentioned, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And the first thing I said, "I want to be an author." And you say, what? I've never heard that before. I want to be a writer, you know? I want to write. And she was like, okay, you're the first person in this whole school that's mentioned the author. And that stuck with me because I find now in this day and age, decisions in writing are the most important thing. As you say, like in a culture, a yes may mean something else. In South Africa, when we say yes, it's yes. It's like agreed, right? And we go. We go our separate ways. Everything's agreed. In this part of the world, yes can also mean I do not want to offend you. I just want to say yes in the meeting. But when I talk to you contractually, I actually say this is the better version. And what I said in the meeting is a no. It can mean different things in cultures. So you have to be an author. You have to record decisions. That's the fundamental thing that has made my career what it is today. Because I'm a very good record keeper. They call me the master of minutes. And now with AI, I think I'm at PhD level. So in terms of authorship, I would say what's got my career is management and being a very good record keeper of decisions with clients and teams.
I totally agree with you on the meeting minutes. My meeting minutes have saved my butt more than once, where a client will say something and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not what happened, or confirming something or going back and I'm like, no, this is what we said in there. So I 100% agree with you on the meeting minutes
Well,
front.
and also luckily for us, the COVID era actually helped us because now everyone is more into the digital, like how we are now, and recordings. So if even if there's a dispute on our minutes, we can always say refer to the recording, which is included in our appendix of the minutes. So as I say, like record keeping, decision making is critical in this part of the world as well. Because everything is fast paced. Just imagine everything is so fast paced, decisions have to be made almost daily. And if you do not record a decision, and the next week can be chaotic. So that's what I say. When I first said in grade 10 that I want to be an author, I find myself being an author nowadays.
And then software wise, what sort of software are you guys using? Are you like Revit, ArchiCAD, AutoCAD? What is the preferred software?
To my dissatisfaction, I thought ArchiCAD would be more recognized, but I found because I was a master in ArchiCAD, so I thought that would be useful in my career as an architect, but I realized Revit was the better tool to learn. Now, with it depends on your career path. If you want to be a design architect, you need to focus more on like Grasshopper or a Rhino. That's if you want to be a REBA recognized concept architect. If you want to be a technical architect, you have to translate Rhino and Grasshopper into or CAD.
Well, thank you so much. I probably could still chat to you for hours. It's so interesting and fascinating, all of the different things that you've done and what you're doing and how you're doing it. It's crazy. Carl, thank you for taking us inside the realities, the challenges, and the extraordinary opportunities that come with building a career across continents. Your perspective on responsibility, trust, and documentation bring a level of clarity that's often missing from conversations about global practice. This episode is a powerful reminder that international architecture careers aren't built on glamour. They're built on competence, credibility, and the ability to navigate complexity at speed. If you'd like to connect with Carl or learn more about his work across the Middle East, you'll find all the links in the show notes. And if this conversation helped ground your expectations or expanded what you think is possible, make sure you're following your design passport. Share this episode with someone considering working abroad, and stay tuned for more honest conversations about building global careers in design.